At this time, I would like to reconvene the regular board meeting. Clerk of the board will call roll.
Solis?
Present.
Segura?
Here.
Pike?
Here.
Hall?
Present.
Tarantino?
Here.
Janney?
Here.
Irizarry?
Here.
We will now hold a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Irizarry, will you please lead us?
Ready?
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Negotiator Government Code Section 54957.6. The board took no reportable action. And at this time, I'd like to recognize we have a board member from National School District, Mr. Brian Clapper, in our Thank you. The board met. Oh wait, that part. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Solis, second by Pike. Would you call for the vote, please?
Solis?
Yes.
Segura?
Here.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
We will now have an update from our superintendent, Dr. Karen Janney.
Thank you. That came quickly.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody. Greetings, Sweetwater staff, parents, students, community members. As always, we welcome your attendance and participation in our board meetings, so thank you for being here. Tonight, I have a theme for my message. And my theme tonight is called Choosing to be Involved to Make a Difference in Our Community, Our Nation, Our World. That's the theme. So think about that theme. Last Saturday evening, Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher hosted her 5th annual Women and Girls of the Year Awards event. And Sweetwater Union High School District was well represented, with current staff being acknowledged, students, former students, and South Bay residents who are making a difference. And I want to talk a little bit about some of those people who, and also a National School District teacher, Christina Sotelo Benson, she was recognized, and another Sioux High alumna and also a National City Council woman, Alejandra Sotelo Solis, she was recognized that night. There was a Montgomery alumni who is also now the Director of Community Partnerships and Civic Engagement for the Advancement of New Americans, and her name is Ijmahan Abdullali, and she's a 2006 graduate of Montgomery High School. Amazing work she's doing. Then there were some students recognized. Sioux High student Marielle Tejas Castro, San Ysidro students Yalin Chavez and Isabel Garcia, and Palomar student Michelle Orozco, as well as 2 Granger students, Araceli and Yareli Duarte. So it was a great evening of acknowledging women and girls in our community and how they're making a difference, either through volunteering or organizing or speaking out. It was just a really inspiring night for me. Now, some of you know that March 31st is Cesar Chavez Day in California. It's his birthday, which is why they chose that day. Our district actually celebrated it yesterday, so we had a holiday. And last Thursday, I attended, along with Mr. Tarantino, a very inspiring Cesar Chavez scholarship breakfast sponsored by Southwestern Community College. Several students, I want to say maybe a dozen students, were awarded scholarships, and all of them have very powerful stories of how they got to this point in their educational career. One student made a comment that really resonated with me, and she said this: it's not what you have, but rather it's who you have in your life to support you is what matters most. I thought that was a really great statement that she made. Now, maybe you know, but Cesar Chavez was an American labor leader and civil rights activist who, along with Dolores Huerta, they co-founded the National Farm Workers Association in 1962. Originally, Mr. Chavez was a Mexican-American farm worker. He became the best-known Latino-American civil rights activist and was strongly promoted by the American labor movement. His public relations approach to unionism was aggressive, but his nonviolent tactics made the farm worker struggle a moral cause with nationwide support. You know, he's very famous for popularizing the slogan, "Si se puede," right? But I wanted to share a few of his other quotes. that I thought were very pertinent, one of which was on a placemat that was there that morning. Here's this quote: "We cannot seek achievement for ourselves and forget about progress and prosperity for our community. Our ambitions must be broad enough to include the aspiration and needs of others for their sakes and for our own." That's the first quote. Here's the second one: "Preservation of one's culture does not require contempt or disrespect for other cultures." And here's the third one: "History will judge societies and governments and their institutions not by how big they are or how well they serve the rich and powerful, but by how effectively they respond to the needs of the poor and the helpless." It was just it was a great breakfast. It's about recognized for the Itiang Award, right, which was a Filipino farm worker, I believe, in 1965, and she was the lead negotiator in the workers' contract for that strike. She was the first Latina inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame in 1933. And while Cesar Chavez made "Si se puede" famous, guess who the originator of that saying was? Dolores Huerta. Now that's something that you probably didn't know, right? You probably thought it was Cesar Chavez. So she continues to be active in lobbying for laws to improve the lives of farm workers to this day, right? And here are a few of her quotes that I thought were, I think, excellent. "Every moment is an organizing opportunity, every person a potential activist, every minute a chance to change the world." Second quote: "The great social justice changes in our country have happened when people came together, organized, and took direct action. It is this right that sustains and nurtures our democracy today. The civil rights movement, the labor movement, the women's movement, and the equality movement for our LGBT brothers and sisters are all manifestations of these rights." Finally, she said, "We can't let people drive wedges between us because there's only one human race." So remember the theme, because in that spirit, across the nation on March 24th, in 800 March for Our Lives, we saw evidence of our youth speaking out, of sharing their voice on gun control and school safety. Their words are just as powerful, and so I wanted to share a few of their quotes from over the March 24th March for Our Lives. Here's one. Someone said, one of these young people said, "We have a voice too, and if our government can't do it, we'll do it." Kids have big voices, even if they're small. I just want to make a difference and help our whole nation understand that. People believe that the youth of this country are insignificant. To those people that tell us that teenagers can't do anything, I say that we were the only people that could have made this movement possible. One young person said, "The march is not the climax of this movement, it is the beginning. If you think today is good, just wait for tomorrow." And then finally, this is more than just a march. This is more than just one day, one event, then moving on. This is a movement relying on the passion and persistence of its people. So I don't know about you, but I'm pretty inspired by the youth of our community and the nation. And so in closing, I wanted to share what I'm wearing in my t-shirt today. I found this online and I bought it, and here's what it says across it. It says, "Science is real, Black Lives Matter, no human is illegal, love is love, women's rights are human rights, and kindness is everything." So with that, thank you for the opportunity to continue to serve and support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Janney. And now for a follow-up, Mr. Irizarry, our student board representative, will share his remarks. Mr.
Thank you.
Irizarry.
Thank you, Ms. Hall and the board. In keeping with that theme that Dr. Jenny mentioned about making an impact and making changes in your community, please report that the walkout events that occurred on March 14th were a huge success. We had a lot of turnout and they were very peaceful, no fights or anything like that happened, and it was just something that turned out really great in my school as well as other schools across the district. And as students, we would also like to commend the district's handling of such, especially when in other school districts, such as there was one in Texas, in which superintendents and other administrators were threatening to suspend students or, to give them detention just for walking out, which was, in my opinion, incredibly wrong and misguided to punish students for speaking out. So we would really like to commend the actions that the district took, and we had a lot of success. We had speakers who were able, to share their opinions and voice their minds, and a lot of what happened, really represented what's going on in Washington D.C. around the nation. We can see that, as students, that we're fed up about what's going on around the nation, our government's inactivity towards addressing these issues, and it's just something that it's really great to see come together, and I'm so glad that our district can become a part of that and, really set the example, model what other districts in the county should be doing, as well as, across the nation. As for other things, I saw on the agenda that today we're going to be discussing a resolution to extend laptops to 12th graders, and this is something that's great to hear because a lot of 12th graders, especially those who are lower income, won't necessarily have access to the same kind of technology resources needed to, say, submit college applications or to access, online prep materials for, say, the SAT. So having these laptops distributed to everybody within the district, including 12th graders, will go a real long way in order to ensuring that this equity is present throughout the entire district. The next thing is concerning infrastructure problems. So as you may not know, Bonita also has some infrastructure problems, and a lot of people that I've talked to in my school have been wondering if there's a way to, by themselves, fundraise in order to help pay for the problems that are going on in the school, or to use the ASB. And a lot of us were asking if that's any possible route, or if it has to go through the entire district funding itself. And that's it for my address. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Irizarry. The board members all received, that item, we will be moving item C2 to a later point on the agenda. This is a point on the agenda where members of the public may address the board on any matter not on the agenda and have 3 minutes each to do so. The Board of Trustees cannot legally take action on or respond to matters not posted on the public agenda, but will refer the matter to the Superintendent's Office for review and report. Thank you for your cooperation. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, Brian Clapper and Karen McManus.
Good evening, Superintendent Janney, Board President Hall, board members, staff, and community. Tonight, Karen and I have come to just speak a little bit on the upcoming Maytime band review, and of course I brought along our board president with the Maytime, Miss Karen McManus.
Thank you. I was just so inspired with what you had to share with us, Dr. Janney, and it actually falls in place with this year's Maytime Band Review theme. This will be our 60th Maytime Band Review. We will be marching down Highland Avenue starting at Sweetwater High School. It's scheduled for October 6, 2018, and this year's theme is Community Heroes. And how appropriate is this? We look to you as our community heroes as well. So I am extending a warm invitation to you all as board trustees to participate in our parade and celebrate our community's heroes. I'm also opening an invitation to you all if you have anyone in the district that you would like for us to honor, such as teachers, students, anyone that you feel that would be deserving of a hero title. We would love to display them for you and have them come down the parade site. So we're very excited about this year's parade. We are asking for your support. We will be reaching out to all of your band directors. We're hoping that we can get participation from all of your high school bands. I believe that there's about 11 or 12, so we'll be sending out emails to them, and we would hope that you would also encourage them as well.
Also, we'll be having fundraisers coming up to the event, so we'll definitely be in touch via email or so that we can all participate in this. And we would really like to keep this and bring this back to the way it was. We've, as it laid off in like 2004, and then it came back. and this is our third year, and we're really struggling, to be honest with you, to get bands, and we really want some more representation from the Sweetwater Union High School District. So, board members, please help us out.
One more time. When is the date in October?
October 6th.
October
Got
6th.
it. Thank you.
10 a.m. Sweetwater.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Danny Allen.
Good evening, everyone. Speaking on behalf of my wife, I'm reading this. We are the proud parents of a current senior and cheerleader at Olympian High School. We want to take this time to speak to you about a few issues concerning ourselves when it comes to the Olympic cheer coaching program. Mrs. Tasha Lyons as the coach. First, we want to question why the monies are collected over the summer for the Olympic cheer. If the school is closed, who has been held accountable for the monies collected, since it can't be turned into ASB to be deposited into the cheer account at that time? Second, we understand that athletic teams have fundraisers, but we fundraise for cheerleaders, that we still have to pay for certain items when it comes to cheerleaders, and when monies were available in the account to pay for those things. For example, senior parents had to pay additional monies for senior night for the tiara and sash for senior night when the money was available in the account, but we all paid out of pocket for that. Third, we was overcharged for items in our spirit packs and not told about it until just recently when we had meetings with various people. But for example, we pay $50 for a pair of shoes, although the shoes only cost $25.95 a pair. We would cheer socks, hair, bow, camp, and bloomers, and such items. We weren't given the opportunity to decide whether we wanted a refund or let the cheer squad keep the additional monies. The other question we have is, we've since learned that it's not appropriate for the coaches to receive the same items as the cheerleaders that they receive for fundraising, like backpacks, shoes, and jerseys. That did occur to where the coaches received and the young ladies and men was out there fundraising, and they got the money, raised the money, but they were purchased gear for the cheer staff. They purchased extra gear, but why was it okay to order extra gear, yet the cheerleaders were forced to sit on the sideline if they were brought the wrong socks or the wrong colored bow? So instead of going to the event and participating in the cheer, which they volunteered to do, they were forced to sit on the sideline and watch the other people cheer while they were, because they had the wrong pair, but we bought extra gear so that could not happen. They could be forced, they could have that gear to do that with. My daughter's been on the cheer squad for 3 years. She's graduating. We've always held her accountable for what she's done, and we're just curious as to why our cheer coach and whoever may be involved in that process to be held accountable for their actions. And we thank you for taking the time to listen to us on this issue.
Thank you for
Appreciate
sharing
it.
your
Thank you.
concerns. Thank you.
Kathleen Shears.
I'd like to begin by saying I met Mr. Chavez in my late 20s. I worked for Connecticut General Insurance Company, and it was then that he organized Western Growers Association. And it was quite a humbling experience, All students matter. Dr. Janney, you have exemplified this mantra throughout your entire career. Mr. Pike, Palomar High School, you came forward and spoke in favor of the students at Palomar High School. These are at-risk youth. In your line of work, it was in your past line of work, it was quite commendable that you did this. It exemplifies the person that you are. I have a brother who's in prison. He's been in prison since he was 30 years old. He will die in prison for what he did. He went to a school like Palomar. It could not save him. So I appreciate what you did. Mr. Solis, you recently mentioned in the board members' comments, whatever they're called. You reached out about the special ed students at Sioux High. Special ed students are some of the most forgotten students in any district, but yet you cared enough to reach out and ask for help for them. It was recognized and appreciated. I received a call from my daughter, Misty Cheers Pettis, about 10 days ago. You know, Mom, Frank Tarantino, I understand why people talk about him the way they do. And I'm like, uh-oh, what happened? She said, no, he's really a stand-up guy. My daughter works at a school called Alta Vista. These students, most of them are in the court system. I also had a foster son that went through it. She shared that you had come there and that you really engaged with the students, and that one of the girls got you to actually dance. And they were asking who you were, and my daughter said, you know, he's on the board, and they were like thinking you were like not next to Trump, but you know what I'm trying to say. So I would just like to say, there were no cameras, no press, no banners. You all just did this because it was the right thing to do, and it should be recognized. Mr. Aguirre, I attended the meeting regarding the new survey for the new bond issue. I was loaded for bear when I came to that meeting. I thought I knew exactly what was going on. You surprised me. Not really. I mean, I know you know, but I was still surprised. Please bear with me. I just say all this to say that when you do little things like this, it makes a difference. And nobody's there to speak on it, but I will. And perhaps somebody could replay this for Mr. Segura, who has not looked up one time since I began speaking. Thank you very much.
Nick Marinovich.
Good evening. Superintendent Janney, President Hall, members of the board. You know, I have to tell you, Superintendent Janney, you know, sometimes I wing it when I come up here in this part of the agenda, but you know, you're so, in a good way, so unusual as a superintendent. I mean, really. I mean, I've gone to board meetings and it's all about what we're doing, what I'm doing, and this type of stuff. And you actually say something that's inspirational, and I make notes of. And I never got to meet Cesar Chavez, but I grew up in that era. And you know, it was the era of, you know, we talk about why this board was. It was the era going through high school. I had the absolute paranoia. I'm going to go to Vietnam. Oh, what the hell for? And it clouded in retrospect, clouded my experience as a student to have to undergo that. So it's kind of like these students with the gun violence. You know, what came out of that Vietnam era, which I was part of, was the distrust of government, because the Pentagon Papers came out, and all of a sudden you had a reason, like, what the hell is the government doing? You know, so anyway, that was a digression. I wanted to recognize Brian Clapper, who was here tonight. Is just one of the greatest people that I've met in the Sweetwater experience, both on his professional level, his fundraising, and he calls me up, wants to know who's going to win the 5th race at Del Mar type thing. And also, I wanted to acknowledge, you know, one of the things that I will always try to do when I make a mistake, I acknowledge it when it's an important one. And a while back, I made a statement about general counsel, you know, that should effectively not report to the board, but there's the state law, and I was corrected on that, and I want to acknowledge my mistake, that I was unaware of that law, and I made a mistake. Finally, I wanted to thank the board. You know, this has been a very difficult time the last 3 months with the death of a mother, a brother, and then my partner's father died at age 92 unexpectedly. Admittedly, he was old, and I want to thank you that your condolences to me and your understanding, but it has not done anything way, shape, or form. Maybe you'll go, oh, to my resolve to do what I consider one of the most important things I've done in my professional life, which is to chair this bond oversight committee and do what I think is the right thing on behalf of the students of the district and its parents. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
Thank you. Clerk of the board, will you please read the items being pulled from the consent agenda?
Yes, I have one change on board agenda item N3. The contract renewal for Moss Adams has been withdrawn by staff. In addition, the dates for the CBIZ contract renewal should be March 28th through June 30th, 2018. Copies of the revised document are on the dais and available in the back of the following items have been pulled. F5 by Mr. Tarantino, G5 by staff, M1 by Mr. Tarantino and the public, M2 by the public, M3 by Mr. Pike and the public, M4 by staff and the public, M5 by the public, N3 by Mr. Tarantino and the public, O1 by Mrs. Hall, Q1 by the public, Q2 by staff, Q3 by the public, and Q4 by Mrs. Hall.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Segura, second by Solis. Would you call for the vote, please?
Solis?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
As a point of the flexibility, the first item that we will be looking at tonight is item Q4. And do we have any public speakers for that item?
No, Madam President.
All right. I pulled this item because it goes along with the remarks made by our superintendent today, and it's a continuation, I believe, from our last meeting when we pulled the item and tabled it for this meeting. And it is a resolution on the safety of our schools, students, and communities, the members of our school communities. And I personally wanted to commend staff, the superintendent, Dr. Fulcher, Dr. Moore, and the others involved in this, because it really is a comprehensive statement about what we're doing and what we resolve to continue to do to make sure students are safe. And on this item, we also had an addendum attached from our bargaining group, the teachers group, that they had passed a resolution at one of their meetings recently. Is that correct, Dr. Fulcher?
That is correct.
Which also supports and states some of their actions and what they've resolved, protecting the promise of education for all. And I want to thank SEA and their president, Jean Chavira, and their reps that worked together to bring this item. I also wanted to say that I'm really mindful of the fact that Dr. Janney is always collaborative in her work, and when this resolution was first put together and was done with an excellent job, and a couple of items were worked on to bring it, maybe to add or to take away from what was on the draft. But Dr. Janney, you always work with all those groups that you meet with before every meeting with all our bargaining units and get their input. So I know that you've shared with them this resolution, and they've had, optimum time to weigh back. But I'm really thankful that they provided to you their work as well. So, is there any other comments on this, Mr. Segura?
Thank you, President Hall. Yeah, I would like to also echo those remarks, and I really appreciate the fact that we did hold off on the final resolution that was put forth by the district, and now including the SCA resolution as part of it. I think it's very important that it's unified and sends a very strong message. Thank you.
And I also want to say that I'm glad that we were working on it. We had it out there to share before the March 14th event where students marched across our district in really significant ways. I'm sure that we'll hear about that. You probably all have different input from your schools about it. I know at Mar Vista High, they had, they took 6 minutes of silence together, the students that were participating in their walkout, and they stayed on campus, they didn't walk out. But then they went to the gym and they read a bio of each of the lives lost during that event at Parkland. So I know that that school and every school had a significant way, an impactful way that their student body led them in this event, and it was really safe, like that was stated before. Dr. Superintendent and Dr. Folger and the rest of our leadership really worked hard to make sure students were safe, but they had a voice. So I want to thank everybody for that. And on that, if there's any other comments on this item? No? Then I'll ask for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Solis, second by Segura. Call for the vote, please.
Solis?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so now we have item F5. Mr. Tarantino. Oh, wait, do we have any speakers on this item?
No.
Mr. Tarantino?
Thank you, President Hall. I had a question about in the analysis, the last statement before the part that says questions says, after all lease payments are made, a $1 transaction will be done to own all of the devices. Am I reading that correctly, that we will have the opportunity to buy all of the devices for $1?
Good evening, President Hall, Superintendent Janney, Board of Trustees, Mr. Tarantino. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. De La Casa. That's great. So we will own them after the lease?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. So are there any other questions from the board? No?
Oh, real quick.
Mr.
And
Felice?
it's a $1 total or $1 each?
$1.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Oh, but it's still a good deal.
$1 total or $1 each?
$1 total, 100 pennies.
100 pennies, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Wow,
you.
thank you. That was a good clarification. Mr. Segura?
Yes, President Hall, I would just like to thank student trustee Irizarry for bringing up reminding everybody the fact of the equity part of, all 12 skaters having, and I remember that, us discussing it at one point, but I had forgotten that, and that's, because my kids are fortunate they have, computers, and not every kid has one, and that's critically important so that they could, do what they got to do, not in studies, but going forward in the future with college or trade or whatever they decide to do. But I really appreciate you mentioning that and bringing that back to the forward in your report, sir.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve item F5.
I'll make that motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Segura, second by Pike. Would you call for the vote, please?
Solis?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
G5, we have a presentation by the staff.
As I multitask throughout the evening. Thank you. Good evening, President Hall, trustees, Dr. Janney, and my cabinet colleagues. It is my pleasure to Manny Rubio, Director of Grants and Communications. It is once again my pleasure to bring you an update, as we do every few months on our LCAP goals. Tonight I'm presenting obviously an update on LCAP Goal 3. And just as a reminder, what are our LCAP goals? You see our goals 1, 2, 3, and 4. Goal 3, specifically regarding fostering and honoring parent, guardian, and community engagement to support excellence in each student's success. So the last time we presented to you in October, we took away some We shared some of the things we had done over the last few months, and then we walked away with some things that we were going to work on between then and now. And so these were the tasks that we were working on, that as a district that we were working on, which is obviously continuing working with our school sites in terms of engagement, continuing our increased digital and web access, and as you see, we have a live streaming that's going on now right behind me, and say hello to everybody. Although it sounds like our network is having some issues up and down, so I'm not sure what's going on, but we're okay. It's up and down. It's on in and out. And our focus on engagement through school and district events, and we'll talk a little bit about that and the things that we've done over the last several months. Before we move on, I want to acknowledge my teammates in this process, which is Dr. Diana Carberry and Jennifer Carbucci, our general counsel, who have been working with me in this process over the last several months. And this presentation was developed kind of as a partnership with us and kind of working on what we needed to update, and that's why what we're presenting tonight. So first of all, obviously a big focus that we did in terms of engagement with our community and parents and community was the development of our mission and belief statements. We've seen this, we've talked a lot about this over the last several months, and those of you that participated in the process or heard about how the process was in terms of our parents, our community members, staff members who were present throughout the day, and then the opportunity that we presented to the community to give feedback via an online forum that we had, and we did receive about 115, I think it was, submittals and suggesting different things that we had. And what you see before you and what you've seen and a lot of the different things, and you see through in the room, I think it's, where is it? Up there, that's right, above the cabinet up there, are our beliefs, our mission statement that we developed, our belief statements, and again, our LCAP goals. So again, I think it's a constant reminder. This is something that we've now shared with all of our school sites. It's available for all classrooms. It's posted in basically everything we do, it seems like, the last couple of months. So this is something that really was a process where we engaged our community in, and again, want to thank everybody that participated in that. And as we do with every one of our LCAP goals, what we do is we get direct parent input. So we work with Dr. Lucilena Perez and her team at state and federal programs, and talk to the parents in terms of the, we have the DLAC group and the DPAC group, our parent groups who work with us directly. And we ask them a couple of questions. These are questions that get put out to both those groups as well as at the school sites. We ask them a couple of questions. In this question, we ask them, what are some of the changes and improvements that you've noticed about communication from the district and your school site to parents and community? And you see before you a few additions, talking about flyers that they've received, phone calls that they're receiving, different websites, different avenues of communication that we've been using as a tools over the last several months. And it seems like those are things that they're appreciating, but then also there's a little bit of a question about how schools are communicating with parents, and talking about how some schools do need to make some improvements to their efforts and involve more parents. So being mindful of that, we then ask the question of what are some of the other ways that we can help your site build and value the relationships that we have with community members and school personnel. And things they talked about, and one is, these are actual examples from parents. These are direct quotes from parents that we pulled from the data that we got. The school principal is attending our meetings, and not just the principal, but obviously a lot of the school site administration who were present, district administration who were present at different events and meetings. They have events that involve, you see, parents, students, staff, community, sports, reading activities, different things. And they have meetings for information involvement. So there's a feel that there's different types of avenues that are out there. There's options for parents to go to, and they're feeling like there's really some new and exciting opportunities for them. Parent centers, we did a lot of emphasis on this, and I'll talk about that later on in the presentation, where we're teaming up with the neighboring schools. So one of the examples was Otay Ranch High, Rancho Del Rey Middle, and Olympian High, and talking about some of the work that they were doing with their community in terms of engaging parents. And meetings that are very important, they have them in our school site, and they're very interesting. So parents, again, are feeling like there is some interest, and what we're offering them is something that's really of value. I wanted to share a little bit about, we are now in year 3 of our work with Hanover Research out of Washington, D.C. And I wanted to share a little bit about some of the results from 2017, which is our second year, and 2018 in terms of how people are feeling. This is a culture and climate survey, and you see from 2017 On the chart there, the different themes that are on there, you see everything from school environment, staff support, staff performance, communication, staffing, hiring, and just overall satisfaction. 2017, staff was feeling pretty positive for the most part. There was a couple areas where neutral is something kind of in between, in the 50 to 60% range, feeling satisfied. Development is something probably under 50% that needs some work. So you see there on the left-hand side, the middle column, responses by staff. On the right-hand column, you see responses by parents and community. It's definitely some areas that we need to do some work on in terms of our parents and community. So if you look at 2018, we see some shifts. So we see some shifts from things that were pretty neutral in the past to now things that are pretty positive. Again, there's a couple of areas that still have neutral. One area in terms of parents that needs development, which is familiarity of LCAP goals, but that's something we're working on. And we feel that especially now that we're really using that information and putting it everywhere, it's going to be something that we have to focus on, and we are focusing on quite a bit. But just a really quick back and forth. I know it's kind of hard because they're not side by side, but you see there is some growth that's happened. And after talking with Hanover, we met with their researchers. We've been meeting with their researchers consistently over the last several months. They're noticing a trend. They're noticing a very positive trend in the work that we're doing, and I'll talk about that in one of my slides coming up. But there's an opportunity now for us to take, especially the areas that we need to do some further improvement, and really further engage in that. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Over the last several months, we've worked pretty strongly on community facilitators and bringing those folks, staff positions on board here with us at the district. The community facilitators, we have 15 at different 15 different school sites. There are 15 facilitators that are currently on place, and more coming. And we have one at the district level who is also working with us in state and federal, who is engaging in a lot of the work that we're doing. So what you see there is quite impactful, and we'll again talk about in just a couple seconds of some of the things that they're doing. Community meetings. We've continued to engage in a lot of ways with our community. Our trustee meetings that you all have hosted in the community at Otay Ranch, Castle Park High. Facility-related meetings that Dr. Aguirre and his team have held at Hilltop High, Bonita Vista High, Mar Vista High. The State of the District, which I'll talk about again also in a few minutes. Our Chula Vista Police Safety meeting that we hosted at Chula Vista High a few weeks ago. And our Parent Symposium, which is actually coming up here on April 7th. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Another big meeting, obviously, that we hosted was our joint board meeting, which was held on January 30th. That was another way in which we really tried to engage our community, and in that facet of our community being the fellow board members and trustees from other districts, and the importance that it is in working with them. So that's definitely a way that we engage pretty significantly with our community. We've worked significantly, again, with our parent engagement programs, things like PK, things that you as trustees have approved over the last several months, Mano a Mano, our feeder district collaboration. One of the things in talking with state and federal is that we actually have 6 parent symposiums that are coming up in South County over the next couple of months. So there's a lot of opportunity that we are engaged with, that we're working with both internally and with our partner and feeder districts on how to get our parents engaged. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm going to be at a presenting collaboratively with Chula Vista Elementary and my counterpart, talking about parent engagement. And they're talking about their parent academy that we host, and that's going to lead itself very well into the parent symposium that we're going to be hosting here next week. So here you see the information about our parent symposium. For those of you who don't know, it's on April 7th at Rancho Del Rey Middle School from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Some very relevant topics for parents to engage in and to get some support on. And we're very excited about our keynote speaker, which is Mr. Victor Villaseñor, the famous author of Reign of Gold, a very impactful book for many of us. And he is going to be there and talk about some of his experiences and what this topic means to him and why it's important for us. So we hope we can see the community out at those meetings. State of the District, our second annual State of the District. We were guesstimating somewhere about 500 people that were there that morning. It was a very powerful morning. Those of you that were there, we had a lot of great conversations, great student presentations. I didn't include a video of it, but we just literally today uploaded our latest video of that on our YouTube page, so you can check that out if you get a chance. But we just uploaded our newest of that. This is a picture of our infographic that we developed, our second one that we've developed. This is available. We all got copies of this at the State of the District. If you don't have a copy of it, it's available online. You can download it on our webpage, or if you need a hard copy, we're happy to send you one. But this really gets into the information on each of our LCAP goals. So again, going back to some information that we got from Hanover, where do we need to do some work? It's LCAP understanding and understanding of what those goals are. So this is the type of product that we develop to try and get people to understand what are those LCAP goals and how do we work on them. Our digital engagement is something that we've done quite a bit of. YouTube live meetings, as I mentioned at the beginning, we started in November of 2017. We've broadcast 6 meetings. We've had nearly 1,000 views total on all 6 of those meetings. We don't get a lot of folks tuning in live. We maybe get a handful, 10, 15 on big nights. But what's impressive about it actually, though, is that people go back and watch it. So if I look at tonight's meeting, I'm willing to bet that in the next couple of weeks we're going to get probably 200 views or so on that video. So people are watching it, going back to it, maybe not live, but they're definitely going back, and it's in our archive now on our YouTube page. They're going back and they're watching it. So in 6 meetings, we've had total of about 1,000 views total. So that's pretty impressive. Mobile Up, that's one of the things that you as trustees have approved. It's something that we're starting to pilot, and we've been working with IT on this, with Mar Vista Academy, the Mar Vistas, Mar Vista Academy, Mar Vista High, Bonita Middle, Bonita High, and here at the district office we're going to be piloting the Mobile Up app, which is something that's a one-stop shop, if you will, where we can go and get information about what's going on, calendar events, things that are going on. So we're starting to launch that now. By the next update that I have for you, I'm sure I'll have a kind of update on numbers, how it looks, how it's working, all that. So the next time we talk to you about Goal 3, we'll have some more updates on that. Web accessibility. This is something we've been doing a lot of work on, my department, as well as with the legal department, Buccia's department. The Office of Civil Rights, of course, came to us, and there's Americans with Disability Act accessibility issues on our websites and compliance. A lot of folks didn't really know that about a year ago that this was an issue that was going on, and I talked about it in my last update in October. But we've done a lot of work directly with OCR. We've hired on Site Improve, who was someone that we have brought on to do our work in that. It's gone pretty well, we think. We were really forging ahead. We've kind of become, we hope to think, a little bit of a model for the government, and they like the fact of the work that we're doing, and they're pretty impressed with where we're going so far. But again, there's a lot of work to do. A plan for content, which is something that you all are considering later tonight, which will hopefully be approved tonight by you all, which talks about any further content that goes onto our website has to be at certain levels of accessibility. And so part of that work that we're doing is making sure that anything and everything that goes up onto our website has ADA compliance and accessibility kind of woven into it. Oh, it's already approved. It was approved on consent. Well, hey, congratulations. That's what we did. Look at that. So what are our next steps? One of the pieces, and it's obviously more, I'm going to start with the second one first, more parent events. As I talked about, there's a lot of upcoming opportunities, and really the digital events. And one of the things that we heard very clearly when we first started this whole process around LCAP was that parents want to engage differently. It's 2018 and people want to engage differently. And so what we're trying to do is offer kind of a menu of different services that we can provide and say, well, you can come to a meeting, but if you can't watch it on YouTube, and you can go on Twitter, or you can go and see a link on Instagram, or there's a lot of different things that we can provide our school sites and our parents. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to just offer different. And the Mobile Up app is an example of that. So we're going to continue on with some of those new products, as you will. Research with Hanover is something that we're really excited about. So as I said, with Hanover, we talked to their lead investigator, the lead researcher is her title, I believe. And we started to ask a couple of questions, because we needed two identified areas that we really had was parent engagement and then work around, they specifically called that the area of bullying, but it was really more about school climate. And so what we're doing is we've already had one, and we're scheduling one with Dr. Fulcher and his team coming up soon, which is what can we do to further look into some of those areas? What further research can we do internally to say, how can we supplement that work and make people aware of some of the things that we're doing maybe at the district level or the school sites are doing at their levels? And so we had a meeting recently with Ana Maria Alvarez and Dr. Luciana Perez, and we talked about engagement, parent engagement. And one of the things we really started questioning was, what is engagement? There's a lot of things that we maybe typically haven't thought of as being engagement, but they really are. The parents who are at the VAPA events, the parents who are at the sporting events, our community that comes out for the robotics team events. These are all forms of engagement that we haven't necessarily studied. And so what can we do to further get into what it is that parents and community members want to see? One of the ideas that we have that we're coming up is we're going to start putting QR codes, the little digital codes, so you can get to a parent survey on basically everything we do. Because we want to get continuous input. And so we look at it kind of like when you go to a store and you buy something, by the time you get home, you've gotten an email that says, how was your experience with us today? And what can we do to further enhance that experience? And so our goal really is to be that and to do some of that work with our parents and our community so that we can say, what have you done? What do you like? What can we improve on? And how can we make this experience a better experience for you? So we're going to start to seeing, we're working with Hanover to start to develop some of those tools, but hopefully in the next couple of months you're going to start seeing these little QR codes on pretty much everything we do. And again, it's a quick way for us to get quick feedback, 1 or 2 questions that parents can answer on a mobile device, on their home computer, really quickly and easily, and we get some really solid feedback on what we're doing. So that's what I've got for you tonight. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Rubio. Are there any questions or comments from the board? No? Mr. Solis?
Just had a quick question regarding like DLAC meetings and whatnot. Would that be possible to, I mean, I know we would need equipment or like the video, tape them or put them on the website as well, because sometimes, well, many times I couldn't make it, or I wouldn't mind seeing some of those meetings.
Yeah, definitely. We can talk to them. And we've talked about, we've had conversations a little bit about how do we increase some access to that. So so we're looking into that. That is actually something that I've talked to them a little bit about. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Tarantino?
Nice job, Manny. First of all, in terms of the Hanover survey results for 2018, in being out and about within the district, you feel this, but this was really a good validation that things are moving in the right direction and have moved in the right direction. I mean, quantitatively, as far as I'm concerned. So thank you for that. In terms of what wellness rules and behavior, what exactly is that regarding students, regarding staff, or both, or what?
It's a little bit of both. I don't know the specific questions. I can get you what they have the categories of all of them, but I believe it has to do with
social, emotional wellness, physical wellness?
A little bit of both. It has a little bit of both, and questions regarding, they ask the questions regarding things like facilities and how does that play into it. How is the climate at your school, and does that influence behavior? There's different factors, but I can get you the specific questions if you want them.
And
I can break them down.
Go through it. I did take the survey, and I don't remember what the questions were that maybe were related to that, but okay.
And we'll be putting out kind of a more detailed, this is kind of the first, just so you get a kind of quick glimpse at what some of the results are, but we'll be putting out, they developed a further detailed report on it. So in that report, it'll actually have all the categories with the questions on it. So we'll make sure we share that with you.
And then the last thing is, in terms of ways that parents can communicate with us and we can communicate with parents, it's been brought to my attention, not that I'm on this, but because you know that I have issues with technology, right, Ms. Facito? But there's a thing called My Neighborhood, my Community or something, and there's been a lot of chatter among community residents about issues that parents have about our district, whether it be the food, whether it be dress codes, whether it be landscape, whatever. Is there, and I don't know the answer to this, and I probably am asking the wrong question, but and I know that you have to be a part of that community in order to be involved in that.
So there are apps, and I think that what you're probably referring to is the Nextdoor app, or the
That's it.
next
Yeah,
door. That's
that's
a
it.
web page.
Yeah, thank you.
So yes, you do have to actually validate your residence. I'm a resident of the, I guess it's technically Otay Ranch area of Chula Vista, and so I'm on it as a, as just being someone who lives in that. But it's the same with the similar situation with a lot of the Facebook groups that we see. And we hear a lot about these types of groups, the Eastlake parent group, or I'm in one called Winding Walk Neighbors because I
Yes.
live in the Winding
The
Walk
HOAs
neighborhood.
now have
Things like that. So different groups that we're at. So unfortunately, as a business or as an entity, you're not technically allowed to sign up as a member of that. We can sign up individually, and you can be a part of that if that's your neighborhood that you live in. And so one of the things that when I get asked about those is I encourage folks, and I do it all the time, well, not all the time, where appropriate, I definitely step in and make comments myself. So a lot of times, I'll hear people asking about, recently someone was talking about the school safety meeting that we hosted, and there was several questions around, what was going on and who was putting it on. And I just kind of stepped in and said, hi, I'm Manny. I live in your neighborhood. I work for the district, and here's what's going on, and here's the flyer. Hope you join us. So I definitely encourage folks, to be that, because we all have to be ambassadors, I think, to our neighborhoods and with our neighbors. But unfortunately, they don't allow us to step in as an official, so I can't create like a Sweetwater login to that. They'd kick me out pretty quickly. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I wanted to say thank you too. And I had a comment about the same bullet point as Mr. Tarantino. And that was in 2017, wellness had its own separate fee, line, and then rules and behavior were separate. So it was kind of clear that they were differentiated.
Yeah.
And we had positive on both responses for wellness, and so now it's kind of muddled into the prior noodle.
So we'll make sure we share with you in a Friday update. I'll share with you the full the results and with the questions on it, and then we can get a better sense of what's in
I
that.
think it is important to keep kind of those. There is something to say about them being a little bit separate.
Yeah.
But I think it's good. One of the things I was just looking through, I was actually during my week off trying to clean up a lot of the paperwork that seems to be laying around in my dining room, and came across several board items that had parent engagement activities over the past, well, there's been a lot of them, but every year we seem to approve them, and I know we've requested feedback from some of those. Most of them are going through federal and special programs, but I think with what you've got going here in your role as communications, it would be nice. We have asked for the past about feedback from those, and we've had some informal feedback from maybe a parent or two coming to the board meeting and speaking to it. But if we could actually have some numbers around who attends those, at, whether they're at a school, if they're in kind of the thematics of those by school, and then if it's a district-wide offering, I think the one I last remember reading about was the one in Point Loma, something that they sent parents to. I know that San Ysidro High was sending a bunch of parents to UCLA every year to do something. So if we had kind of a comprehensive study about what all those different offerings are and who's actually attending them and what kind of feedback we're getting, it would be helpful to know as a whole what we're doing and what's trending and what's not. I think that would be a good idea, because sometimes those things are continued on just because that's what we've always done. I don't think that's the intention by anybody, but I know that sometimes it's good to understand that we're changing it up, and that way we have that information to share.
Yeah.
Not that we're not doing it right, but how are we doing it right? And look, we've done all of this, and here's the results. Well, I think the one I was thinking of was a biliteracy symposium, and it may be coming up again this year, I would think, but how many participated last year and how many were actually parents of students and, that kind of
Yeah, I think that's pretty easily accessible. I know they definitely track everything down to, I mean, even some of the stuff I shared tonight, which literally comes from school sites, and they actually track, this is the number of school sites that this is coming from, these are the number of parents that were each one of those meetings, so we can
Right.
track it down pretty
That'd be good.
pretty
That-
specifically. So
Yeah, because I think eventually, I mean, not that, you know, this is really probably too nitty-gritty, but as we look at data with our feedback, you know, our data and what kind of results we get and how that impacts students, are the parents that are going, is there a significant impact to the students that are most needy for some of those services? Are they really being impacted by their parents attending those, or are their parents even attending? So then how do we structure outreach for those that can't or aren't? So I really appreciate this, and I'm really thankful that we're headed in the right direction.
thank you very much.
All right, I'll take a motion, or this is just an accept. We don't
Just a report.
Yeah, just a report. Okay. So now before board member Segura has to leave, could you? We're gonna do item Q2, which is for Mr. Solis' non-attendance. So we'll do that before you leave. Okay. All right. So I think Mr. Solis has to recuse himself from this vote.
Just abstain.
Just abstain? Okay. So, do I have
I'll make a
any-
motion.
Okay. Motion by Pike, second by Segura. Could you call for the vote?
Solis,
Abstain?
Segura,
Yes.
Pike,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes?
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 abstention.
All right, thank you. So, M1.
M1, I have 2 speakers. Kathleen Shears.
The Hilltop students, staff, and parents have been more than patient. They deserve better. Having said that, not raising the following would be negligent on my part. The Hilltop High School budget is being increased by $3,165,000. This board and we taxpayers have been let down by those whose responsibility it was to manage this project. It is important to note the PLA was not part of that failure. We had no secured, Number 8, Mar Vista. This building budget is being increased by $5,800,000. The project's price tag is now $13,800,000. Well, I do believe we're going to do a project. Whenever we're going to do a project, we need to do it right the first time. It is important to raise the following points. We have no secured funding commitment from the city of Imperial Beach. We have no secured funding commitment from Sacramento. There is no secured MOU from the city of Imperial Beach relative to the $1 million a year it's going to cost for maintenance. While $1 million may not sound like much, when you multiply it over the many years it will be used, it would be rather physically irresponsible for us to not adhere a price tag to anyone outside of this district that uses that pool. And I mean CIF, the city of Imperial Beach, anybody else, because that pool is going to take a lot of use. And like I said, while it's a lot of money, it's good to see under Dr. Aguirre's direction and with the intelligence of this board that we're making the tough decisions and we're doing things right the first time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nick Marinovich.
Good evening again, President Hall, members of the board. When we had our Bond Oversight Committee meeting last week, we focused on 4 meaty items that you'll see in the presentation. And frankly, we did not do much of a project review on the actual agenda items, which included these items. So these comments are somewhat personal. I think I have the flavor of what the CBOC would say. there's two projects, Hilltop and the pool are the two ones that are in question. You know, we've kind of beat the Hilltop High School project to death, frankly, and I think, you know, Dr. Aguirre understands where the shortcomings were. And I just think there's a silver lining in it. Let's learn from our mistakes and pay attention to the details. That ought to be the culture of the project managers. Every single one of them, pay attention to the details like it's your money, their money. But anyway, the second thing, Dr. Aguirre gets it. The second thing on the pool, you know, it's one of those projects that, you know, it's in both of these are what I would term legacy projects. They've been talked about for years. And I was wondering, and this is not to question this decision because it's kind of, you know, the train's kind of left the station. But if you took the what's left in the bond sale 2 monies, and then you lumped in bond sale 3 that's about ready to happen, and you took all the projects pending, which included the pool and the athletic field, what would the priorities be if you use that? And it may not come out that these would be the top 2 projects. What I'm suggesting is, in the future, and this rubric is a work in progress, that there be some weighting criteria for legacy or past commitments or something like that. It could give added weight to something that may not otherwise be funded. And that's the only thing I wanted to say on this. If I'm making sense on that. So I know when I was you probably heard at the county, they did something like that. When you had a lot of already past investment in something, it was given extra credit in terms of priorities. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
No further speakers?
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board on item M1? Mr. Tarantino.
Yeah, I have on item number 8 of M1, the Mar Vista pool. The numbers don't add. In doing simple math, the numbers don't add up. So I was wondering, through the chair, if Dr. Aguirre, you could walk us through the original cost and how we got to the $13,800,000. I'm okay with that. I think it's just, like I said, it says that we still need $2 million, but in reality, I think we need more than $2 million. And so, if you could just clarify whether my math is wrong.
Yeah. So there's, like much in construction, there's multiple pieces and layers to this. So the first part is we actually went out and had a professional estimating firm put together 3 options for us in terms of cost, kind of the low, the mid, and the high option. They're option C. This option is the more comprehensive option, really, the one that's really an aquatic center. That we're talking about 50-meter pool rather than 25 yards. So we had those conversations. So the number, the 13.8 million, was acquired through, it was an expert analysis, if you will. Having said that, we're hearing there are multiple things going on in the construction environment that are going to impact a large-scale construction project. One of which is the potential for tariffs. That's something we're keeping an eye on, the steel tariffs. So even national policy, and there's a lot of uncertainty around that, has the ability to greatly impact the costs of construction. So that's something we're keeping an eye on. It's in flux right now, but I think it's important to state. So the price, again, the cost, the 13.8, was arrived at by that estimate we received. It was vetted through the facility subcommittee, and we talked about that. So that's the first part. The second part of the conversation in terms of the numbers, so if you look at it and having conversations with the finance department and with Ms. Travers, so what we did is we tried to impact bond sale 3 to the least degree possible. So we identified contingency funding that was available, program administration funding that's available. Again, the overall objective was to lessen the impact on the bond sale 3 to the degree possible, so we could get the project off the ground. We do acknowledge there's still a $2 million shortfall of that 13.8 estimate. We're having conversations with both the city and with the state. As recently as last week, we had conversations with the director of state parks. There's a substantial possibility, but I think we're cautiously optimistic. We're not going to count on that money until we have a document that specifically states that funding is available. What the city it could look in terms of operations or construction. They're kind of trying to figure that part on their end. But we are really active in exploring some of these options. It's not a passive issue, but we're trying to come up with those $2 million to really make it a joint use funded project, because we are aware of this is a high ticket item, and so we're trying to defray it to the degree possible.
I'm not so sure that still answered the question. So before tonight, how much did we already have set aside for the pool?
So we had $6 million set aside previously, yes.
Right.
And so tonight we're identifying
5.8.
an additional 5.8.
And that's where the 2 million come in, because it's 13,800,000.
That is correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Are there any other questions regarding M1? May I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Pike, second by Solis. Would you call for the vote, please?
Solis?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
M2 has been pulled by the public.
Yes, I have two speakers. Nick Marinovich.
Good evening again. This is, and I apologize to Dr. Aguirre. It's a question, maybe through the chair. On Little Diversified, the architect that's for the Hilltop High project, it says extended construction administration services due to the change in contractor. And I thought construction administration is like where the architect has to tell the contractor what they meant in the drawings. I don't know if you got the right one up there. I'm just wondering, it seemed to me those services would go consistent. Either you got the services needed when you got a contractor, or when you don't have a contractor, you don't need the architect to be telling the contractor what, the help in the actual construction. I'm trying to understand why, if I'm making sense, why we need extended services beyond what was budgeted for originally in the project, just due solely to the change in the contractor.
Kathleen Shears? Oh, sorry. Kathleen Shears?
Mr. Pike, I already know you're going to smile. So you all remember when I brought up Little Diversified and they bought out the company and yada, yada, yada. Okay. And see, you did smile. So their original fee for the original architectural firm was $148,000. That wasn't Little Diversified. That was the company they bought out. So Little Diversified comes in, and so, you know that story. That's 43. And now they're coming back for 47,000 more. A field is a field is a field is a field. You cannot tell me that them being there for the rest of the project, even though there's a new contractor, is going to encumber $47,000. And I just have to say this because I come from corporate America. And while people often say this is not a business, Sweetwater is a business. When you deal with as many millions as you deal with, this is a business. And I was a West Coast manager. And if anybody would have messed up like this, including me, I would have been fired. Because what you all have had to put up with from me alone in the last 2 years is ridiculous. And here they are back again. So, President Hall, if you could ask Dr. Aguirre, what are we paying for with this $47,000? I don't get it. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
Dr. Aguirre?
Yeah, so I can speak to it global, and then I'll ask Mr. Bradley to come up and explain it. So globally speaking, there is a takeover contractor, and in order for them to have a better understanding of the plans, this is part of what is needed to ensure they come in and understand the plans. But I'll ask Mr. Bradley to explain the specifics in terms of why this is needed. Mr. Bradley.
President Hall, members of the board, Dr. Janney. Little Diversified has been actually instrumental in repackaging the documents to identify the remaining work to help expedite our takeover contractor and the San Diego County Office of Education to expedite getting back to work on this project. Moreover, if you look at their proposal, you will see that a good portion, I think the majority of the proposal, is pass-throughs to sub-consultants, all of whom are having to continue to work on this project for months beyond the original completion date. We're supposed to be complete on this project by the beginning of this calendar year, and it's not the fault of the sub-consultants who work for Little Diversified that that's the case.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board? Mr. Solis?
So just real quick, if I understand that correctly, is the subcontractors are still working, so they're getting paid by Little Diversified, so we have to pay Little Diversified to pay for the subcontractors that are still working?
That is correct. The subconsultants, including the civil engineer who did the track design and the drainage, the electrical engineer, and those are the two big components of their pass-through, and I believe that they're delineated in that proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve item M2.
I'll move.
I have a motion by Solis, second by Segura. Would you call for the vote, please?
Solis?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
We have Mr. Pike with a question on M3.
Yes.
I actually have two speakers. Would you like the speakers first?
Sorry, yes, the speakers should come first. Thank you for that.
Kathleen Cheers?
So back when we did the Montgomery 2 project, we were well into it, and all of a sudden we have a meeting and we're told that Dr. Brand, genius that he was, wanted logos on our court. He wanted an apple and he wanted a book. I don't remember the thousands of dollars that cost, but I raised holy sand about that because, in my opinion, we were doing some things that I thought were extravagant as it was. Which brings me to number 6. I am an alumni of Hilltop, and when I drive to Hilltop, I know where Hilltop is, and I know that that green out there is Hilltop, meaning the green on the jerseys. So could you please explain to me why we need a $64,000 logo on that field? I do not get it. We are not North County. We're giving them a field, and while you know what, I'm not sure if Montgomery has a logo. Maybe it does. I don't know. But I just don't get it, why we need logos on those fields, because those monies from here on out could go to better usage. So, as you all know, the county is managing this project, and I kind of monitor stuff online, and it's my understanding, unless it's been changed, that Soltech is going to be the ones doing the project. Soltech did Montgomery High School project too. So what I would like to respectfully recommend to Dr. Aguirre, and I'm really not teasing when I say this, even though you're going to laugh, is that you get a percentage decrease from them, because I went to their meetings every week for 2 years. So for 2 years they had to put up with me, and I was far worse then because I was younger. So they're not going to have to put up with me. So if you could remind the president of the company, because he knows me quite well, make that happen. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we could shuttle you there if you'd like.
Nick Marinovich?
I really don't like to hear myself talk, but anyway, I do think I've been sitting here for 6 years and looking at these projects and the procurement way of doing things, low bid, and then looking at design build. And I've come to the conclusion, being involved in design build for that courthouse project now that was 22 years old, and going and look at it, the quality of it, and looking at the quality of some of the work that's been done for this district, and looking at the success of the HVAC project. Of course, that had a lot to do with the project manager on it, And I just think the district ought to really, oh, I didn't realize it was that funny over there. I think we ought to really think about design build wherever we can within the constraints of the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further speakers?
Mr. Pike?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to, number one, in our change order summary, install the water cannons. I think that's an excellent idea because we're going to need cleaning on all the fields, and cannons are the thing that they have to do so they don't get contaminated with the different things that happen. But I also had a question about number 6 because I don't know what they're going to do to make it $64,000, but I was like, wow, that's a lot of money for a logo. So I was just curious, and I'm sure there's an answer. So if you could just explain that to me, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Dr. Aguirre?
Yes, so thank you, Trustee Pike. So in essence, there's a lot of conversation at the campus around what the field would actually look like. And so one of the conversations was the site had actually requested, among other things, alternating shades of green and other items, which we said that's not a district standard. We did agree that logos were an appropriate item to include in the project. However, we are open definitely to having that conversation with Soltec, the firm that will be doing the construction. We've been negotiating this very actively and trying to bring the costs down. It's been an interesting. It's like a three-way conversation because technically our contract is with the County Office of Education, the JPA. They in turn contracted the firm Soltec. So our conversations have been directly with JPA, and our hope is that we can get this project within. Again, we will advocate and continue to negotiate to bring the costs down. This is going to be a design build takeover project, so that's one of the, I think, things that in terms of what we can do differently next time is really look at this type of construction delivery method. It's among other things that we're actively looking at how we restructure our bid process. So we have, again, taken certain things and we've taken action, including changing our handbook, our PMP. So with that said, there was a lot of conversation. The logos are something we did. The site made that request pretty strongly. We didn't agree on some items, such as the different shading of the field color, but this is something that we did agree on. So after a lot of conversation.
Okay, thank you. Maybe they can make the little Lancer guy a little smaller or something.
Excuse me.
We're open to. Okay.
Okay. Has anybody else got a question? Well, I had a question. I was going to ask about the Montgomery field was done with the same by the county, was it not?
Was that the gym?
No.
That was a gym.
That was just the gym. Okay. So is there a logo on the Montgomery High School field? Is there one on the Olympian and the Otay Ranch field?
Yes.
And the San Ysidro High field?
I believe there is, yes.
So it is a standard of the district to have a logo on the field, it seems to me. So that's all I'm going to say.
And if it may
Mr.
clarify,
Tarantino?
that actually includes the lettering in the end zone.
Oh, there you go.
Mr. Tarantino.
I was just going to amplify your point that, you know, the fields that we've redone, my recollection is they do have logos, whether it's OR for Otay Ranch or they have the actual mascot. I think, I don't know, well, I think it could be a number of things, but I think you're right, President Hall, that if we're going to talk about parity, I think we need to have the logo. I mean,
bite the bullet.
The shades of green, I agree with you. I think it's a little over the top, but logo, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Are any other comments, questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pike, second by Segura. I'll call for the vote, please.
Solis?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
So motion M3 passed, right? So now we have M4 pulled by the staff and the public.
We actually have a staff
We have a staff
presentation, and then we'll have the
presentation
public
first.
comment.
Okay. Mr. Aguirre? Dr. Aguirre, excuse me.
So thank you, President Hall. this item, we wanted to present. I'll present it globally, and then I'll ask Ms. Quirk and Ms. Travers to come up if there's any specific questions. Globally speaking, this is our recommendation from a staff perspective for projects for Bond Sale 3. The way this has been processed is it was vetted through the facility subcommittee, I want to say a couple weeks ago, maybe even a month ago now. In essence, it's our best efforts to identify, based on some metrics and data, what our recommendation to the board would be for purposes of identifying Bond Sale 3. This recommendation includes two attachments. One is a narrative where our staff put together kind of a description of how this came about. So how we developed the objectives, how the rubric was drafted, and our recommendation. Again, that's a question that was posed to the facility subcommittee, and we very clearly heard a preference for a staff recommendation around Bond Sale 3. So that's the priority narrative, which includes the recommended items from our staff. Then the second item is the actual rubric that was developed for purposes of Bond Sale 3. So we have a lot of need in our district. This particular rubric is our effort to bridge where we are at today and where we are looking forward to getting in the future. Because in the future we are currently working on master plans for each site. So that process will help inform the project list moving forward. However, we did not want that to hold us back from this opportunity that we had to be able to fund projects on our campuses. So if you look at that rubric, you will see the items noted in green, which are rows 3 through 7. Those are our staff recommendations. Item 1 and 2 are also staff recommendations. They're a little bit different in nature. Item 1 is capital improvement projects, so that would be roofs, that would be plumbing, that would be HVAC, that would be kind of the bread and butter, if you will, in terms of capital projects. And the district-wide IT E-rate project is a project we're recommending based on the fact that we are eligible for federal reimbursement, but we need to make a matching contribution. That item, it's important to note, we're talking about the backbone of our systems. It's not for individual devices. It's for cabling, switches, items that are, again, infrastructure in nature. It's not necessarily for devices, so I think that's also important to note. So with that, I'll ask Ms. Quirk and Ms. Travers to briefly describe the process of how this rubric was put together. And if we could scroll a little bit to show the top of the document, so we can go over the different colors in terms of the columns and what each of those stands for.
Good evening, thank you. So Dr. Aguirre already touched on a couple things. The left column, all the way on the far side, it says grade level, indicates for you if it's a multi-site impact, high school, middle school. The second column for site and project, we just walking you through a little bit of the process that we did. Taking you back to March of 2016, we brought forward the site facility condition assessments that we did internally with staff and with the school sites. They were color-coded, the red, the blue, and the green, if you recall those. So to start this process off, we asked the staff to each go look at one of their respective sites and to identify 2 red-coded projects to bring forward for recommendations to make this list, with the objective being focused on classrooms for students. So that list was then consolidated down to 1, and we did that by cross-referencing it to existing master plans that are under development and selected projects that did not have any conflicts with where the future master plan is heading for us for right now. So example, if there's a building that is being recommended, like the Bonita Vistas that are up there, we know in the master plan they don't call for being demolished or a new building in their location. They will stay put, so we're not losing out on the funds that we're putting into those buildings. The next column is the estimated value. To touch base, to go back a little bit on one of the things that Dr. Aguirre touched on a few minutes ago, those costs are all in. They're inclusive of your hard and soft cost projections. We are currently forecasting a 20% escalation rate. So right now in today's industry, the forecast in the beginning of January 2018 was that escalation was going to jump to 11.5% by June. That forecast is now pushing 20%, and with tariffs in place, whether they're coming or going, whatever it is, it's causing enough chaos that current forecasts as of last week have us at 35%, potentially higher. It is moving every day. We don't know where it's going. We will continue to keep a pulse on that. But when you get farther into our numbers, we have some cushion built in to help augment those if necessary. But that's something that that's impacting us with all the forecasting we're doing right now. So that's embedded in those estimated costs. And your objectives is we created off of our bond language. We went through and created an alphanumeric organizational reference for ourselves, and that's what's indicated on the PL is for the proposition language, BL for bond language, and then the numbers are actual site-specific projects, numbers 1 through whatever they had identified on the language, and that's just an internal reference for ourselves in terms of being organized and our identification of what we have on the list. And then a Y or an N indicates whether it met the objective of a classroom or no classroom. Fast forwarding into the criteria for scoring, and I will ask Ms. Travers, because she's a little bit more fluid in some of this than I am, to be my wing woman right here where I need her to. But the funds allocated to date. So the number that you see all the way on the ground total and in some of these other areas, the higher the number, the greater the need. And so on the funds allocated to date, that reflects the money spent to date on those campuses, but then we made them a negative number to be counterbalanced by the next column, which is the facility lifespan. And in the facility lifespan, that is the age of the existing school sites subtracted by 2018. So an example we always use for an easy one is Sioux High. It's almost 97 years old, but we subtracted that number by 100 because they've also gotten about $78 million worth of work embedded into their campus. So there's a little bit of a balance that comes into play when we're doing that. So that's the theory behind those two. And then moving to health and safety and accessibility, again, the greater the number, the higher the need. Those are for any health and safety issues, path of travel, accessibility issues for our DSA requirements. And then the last one is the Facilities Condition Index, and that number we pulled from the Jacobs report. Each one of our campuses received a score in the Jacobs report, and I'm gonna try this, and if I need Ms. Travers to clean me up, I'll have her come do it. But the Facilities Condition Index number, we are trying to determine the deficit index. And so with that, what we want to show you, that number showed us everything that was correct and good in their assessment number. We also want to know the opposite of that. And so we took that number and it was subtracted by 100 to give you the scores that are reflected in the Facility Condition Index column. So then that gives you a subtotal, and we apologize, that should actually be a slightly different shade to kind of jump out at you. And then we go into a few other determining factors. Supplemental funding. Does a site have additional funds or project have additional funds available to it? State match, CFD, E-rate, any other kind of funds that are available. If they do, they have an additional 2-point value associated to them. Qualitative measure is what we're saying our professional recommendations are to you in terms of what's best for the campuses at this time. And then the last one is the conflict with master plan. Just reiterating for you, those projects that are at the top are not in conflict with where our current master plans are headed. So I'm going to ask Ms. Travers to come up. She'll run you through on page 3 the dollars for where we stand right now as a follow-up to where Dr. Aguirre presented earlier.
Good evening, board. So if we go to page 3 of the narrative, the lower portion of page 3, please, we'll see the available funding that we're estimating that is estimated to be received from Bond Sale 3. So we believe we're going to have about $27.6 million for projects, and below are the recommendations that staff are bringing to you tonight for projects where we are recommending that the board allocate funding towards. The first two, as Dr. Aguirre explained earlier, these are projects that are multi-site, so they're going to be benefiting multiple sites throughout the district. We've also requested 1.3 for Hilltop High School track and field, which was also covered during item N1 earlier tonight. And then the next couple of projects are directly from the rubric. So Bonita Vista High School and Bonita Vista Middle School both have a large population of CFD students, so students that are residents within CFD. So the total project cost can be shared between Prop O and the Melrose districts, so that helps stretch our dollars a little more. So we're asking here that the board approve both funding from Melrose and from Prop O. So the total project cost, for example, for Bonita Vista Middle School would be $6.6 million. Well, we're only asking for 4.7 from Bond Sale 3 and 1.8 from Melrose. Does that make sense? The third project you see up there is Mar Vista High School ROTC building, $5.5 million, and we're asking full funding from Prop O Bond Sale 3. The next project, we don't have enough money to fund the complete project, so what we're asking the board to allocate is $250,000 towards the design phase of the modernization for the 1200 building at Castle Park High School. And then we do have enough funding to allocate towards the next high priority need, which is an elevator for our 100 building at Chula Vista High School. That's not an ADA compliant building currently. So allocating $1.4 million there, and then 2.8 towards program management of those projects that you see above, and 3.1 for contingency. Lastly, you see recommended project for future funding. So like Ms. Quirk said earlier, we really don't know where inflation is taking us. So if we have savings and we can fund the construction phase of Castle Park High School, we're recommending that that be the next project kind of ready to go.
Thank you. Do we have any public speakers?
Yes,
on
Madam
this item?
President. Kathleen Shears.
Regarding the Hilltop High School track and field, a couple points. The school's not even painted green anymore. Hello. I don't know whose idea that was. The second thing is the Sioux High mascot was $22,000. So has paint gone up too? And regarding, with all due respect, Mr. Tarantino and Ms. Hall, you talking about parity. When you know better, you do better, in the words of Dr. Phil. And I have a question another question about the high school, the field. Did Soltech include a field cleaner? If not, bring me in. I'll negotiate that for you. The next one moving down is Bonita Vista Middle School. I have a real issue with this being above Granger. And at the BOC meeting, I did engage with Ms. Quirk and Ms. Traverson, and I walked up to them after the meeting and said, I am PO'd, and I did not use the initials. And I would like to say that it amazes me, because I know I've got a very strong personality, or so my husband tells me. They never take it personally. They understand my passion, and they listen. And Granger looks like a third world country school. And I have seen the quality of the construction at Granger under the BB funds. It is crap. Literally. It is a school that's been forgotten, in my opinion. Under Prop O, we used some money there. We built the Samahan Clinic, who was not even seeing the kids for free for their physicals. Beyond my comprehension, Dr. Fulcher took care of that, and I thank you, sir. Mar Vista High School, it's good to see Mar Vista High is being modernized. Castle Park High School, that school is long overdue. It really needs it. And I would just hope that as soon as possible, Castle Park could be taken care of. And again, I would like to thank Ms. Traverson and Ms. Quirk for being the professionals they are and understanding my passion. Thank you.
Nick Marinovich.
Not that I agree with their decision.
Thank you.
Well, I can tell you why how that health clinic was funded at Granger, but you'll probably be able to figure it out. Anyway, who's on whose board who wanted to do a favor? Anyway, I do want to compliment, seriously, this was an excellent staff work. One of the best pieces of staff work I've seen since I've been on the committee, and I don't use that phrase lightly. It deals with compliance with ballot language, classroom first emphasis. It's logical, it's defensible. It's the kind of stuff that, you know, that people in the field do it the right way. And I just really think it's staff should be commended for it. But here's the most important thing. Not only is the actual matrix make sense and all that, but, you know, this is not of this has been not enough of it has been done in the past where staff is working together. They're not working in a vacuum. You got the accountant types. Where is she? There she is. With the glasses, working with the, you know, it makes total sense. So the only thing I would say is that we had an issue tonight. It came up with the logos on the field. Is the concept of parity and equity, and how far you're willing to push that concept before it starts costing too much money. It's a consideration that eventually, you know, you don't want to commit something at a school knowing that it could be down the line. The final thing, and I was sitting here thinking about this board meeting, you think of the percentage of your time on this meeting is spent on purely business-related matters, contracts, numbers, finance. And I think it's something a lot of the public doesn't really, they think school board members, all they think about is what textbooks to buy. And it's certainly a lot more. Your job is extremely complicated, but I think you know that. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further speakers.
All right. Do I have any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Tarantino?
Ladies, whether you know it or not, you've built a master schedule for facilities. And for those of you who don't know what a master schedule is, that is the arrangement of classes by period and by need. And you have done that. And it is a 3D puzzle, basically, and you have done it successfully. And you made it look so easy. And I know that it wasn't easy. And I know that you invested a lot of time and effort, you, both of you, as well as the entire team. And again, to echo what Mr. Marinovich has said, it's nice to see everybody working together with the common cause and students first. And you know it's students first because it's only about classrooms. It's not about gyms. It's not about all the other ancillary facilities. It's about classrooms, which is what we're all about. So I congratulated you at the facilities subcommittee meeting, and I congratulate you again. Nice job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Solis?
Yeah, I too want to say thank you for the work that you've put in. It's impressive. Makes it easier on us to look at. So thank you. And I did have a question with regards to Granger. Like, I know, yeah, it has been, but it just by going to the campus, it needs help. It needs a lot of living, like a lot of our campuses. But I just want to know what's going on there. And
thank you. Dr. Aguirre.
Thank you, President Hall. Trustee Solis, so there's a couple of things going on with Granger. One is this list, again, is just to remind ourselves, is specific to Bond Cell 3. We are working actively with our maintenance department. We're going to be going out there to see what can be done from the maintenance perspective. We've been made aware of some issues out in portions of the field, so we're going to go out and make some observations and see. There's some work that can be done from the maintenance perspective. It's not going to be the kind of the major construction projects, but there is some work that we can come in and clean up some of the issues that have been brought to our attention. And again, Mr. Malone and I will be out there on Monday of next week. So that's the part from the maintenance side. If Ms. Quirk wants to talk about the construction side.
Yeah, what time on Monday of next week?
It's around noon.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if I can stop by because I'm on break. So sure, if that's okay.
I would just say that that campus did make the list, but it's down farther on the list, and it is in direct conflict with their master plan. And I appreciate and hear some of the other concerns about work that's been done in the past, and there are areas where it would benefit for us to go back to a little bit at some point or another. But in terms of their overarching priorities, it would be some of the projects that are being put into their master plan moving forward.
Okay.
In addition to the work that Dr. Aguirre is talking about for next week.
Thank Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And one more thing.
Yes.
Mr. Marinovich actually sent me a news article about the new School of Architecture and Design that did some designing for National City, the city of National City. I just wondering if it's, I mean, it's pennies on the dollar there because you're getting students working on those types of plans. Just wondering if there's any possibility where we can partner up with schools to do stuff like that for us, because I mean, you get younger eyes on it. They've been through just recently through high school, so they might find better ways to plan a school or create something to help the school perform better. I don't know if there's possibilities to look into that.
So we can,
Dr. Aguirre.
President Hall, we can definitely explore that. If you have any particular schools that you were thinking about, we can engage that, or we can engage generally. We can have those conversations.
Yeah, I think generally we find that the one that they used was the New School of Architecture and Design. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Segura?
So I just had a question on the rubric. So I noticed, you know, where and it makes sense where you do funds allocated to date, and that, and the, I guess the minus. The only question I have is, was there any weighting or consideration given to schools that have had funds allocated to date, but it was because we were sued and we had to spend the money there, like Title IX and that sort of thing? So that's my question.
That's a good question.
We did not take that into consideration. We just took the number as a whole. So funds spent to date at the campus, or funds spent to date plus any budgeted funds. So, for example, at Mar Vista High School, the money that has already been allocated towards the pool was also included in that number.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Dr. Janney?
So sometimes you go through a process like this and you're in it so deep you can't see everything else sometimes. And so that's why we bring it forward to the public, to the CVOC, to our union meeting. We had some good ideas brought up at that meeting around the rubric tonight. And so it's a work in progress. And so I think the staff is hearing everything that everyone is saying. And as we continue to move forward and improve on this, we're going to take those into consideration, because they're all really good points. That how do you include all of that in a rubric that covers all of the great ideas? So it's a challenge, but this team is up for the challenge.
Anyone else? Mr. Rosari? No comment? Okay. I just wanted to comment too. Thank you very much. I know it's really difficult, and you're taking an approach that can demonstrate and illustrate some of the ways you're weighting these projects and prioritizing. So there's never going to be what we all want, which is enough money to put our schools where they should be, every campus, and, you know, in optimum condition. And I understand why you would just plug in a number, because at some point you've already been preparing all these different, you know, your life is in spreading out numbers across a lot of things, and on demand sometimes, coming up with reports and analysis and projections that are just crazy busy. One of the things around, and I've asked, because there is a lot of money going to the Mar Vista High Pool, and that just sounds like it's one school that gets getting all that money, but it is actually for every school that participates and utilizes that pool in that community, not just one school. And how you weight that might make a difference as well, because there's still, I'm glad that they're on the list, and I'm glad that Castle Park's on the list for some money, and a good amount of money. 9 million isn't, but I know Sioux High still needs a lot of work, you know. All these schools, Mar Vista Academy hasn't really had anything done except for HVAC, which they were very grateful for. They've never stopped expressing their gratitude for having some of those projects at their school. But I know that there's still a tremendous amount of need at there. Like everybody else said, National City Middle probably isn't quite complete yet either. So I appreciate that some of these projects fell off the grid because they have a master plan of where they want their school to go, and there wasn't enough funding, and they were not as high maybe on this list because of the way this was graded. So I do look forward to hearing more about the fuller picture going forward, because we are planning to do a bond sale. I believe we're moving in that direction, or a proposition in November, so that we can get more funding to do major projects across these other schools as well. It's tough when you don't have enough money to do it really well, and so I thank you for this, and I understand where we stand with it, and that's all I have to say. Thank you. Mr. Solis?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Hall, for saying that. I really appreciate that. And in no way did I want to move Granger up or anything.
No.
I understand the work. No, and thank you. No, it's perfectly said. And also I want to take the time to acknowledge my 4 YouTube watchers, my 3 daughters and my wife. So that's for 4 people watching for sure. So just wanted to say hi and good night. But thank you.
So, is there any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve item M4.
So move.
I have a motion by Mr. Solis. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Pike. Call for the vote, please.
Solis?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. M5, pulled by the public.
I have one speaker, Kathleen Shears.
President Hall, I'm going to have to leave. I have to catch a plane.
We'll excuse you then. Thank you for being here.
Have fun, Nick.
Travel safe.
I would just like to say that having worked with Community Colleges Facility Authority, they're a class act, and also Soltech. Hopefully, based on my experience, we won't have any problems. I also watched Judge Judy on top of Dr. Phil, and so if you turn to page 1 of 14, I had a question about the right-hand lower page where it has initials for the county, but it doesn't have initials for us. And the only reason I bring that up is because it's the Hilltop Track and Field. and I just kind of, I don't know, I just want to throw that out there. Additionally, I would like to thank Mr. Segura for bringing forward the question about the Title IX, because I didn't realize that with regards to the monies. And just to say that, just think, Dr. Gondra would have valued female athletes and bought them a few gloves and mitts and balls and bats, we wouldn't be here. Well, we'd be here, but you know what I mean. Thank you very much.
No further speakers.
All right. Is there any question? Nobody pulled this one, so. All right. So I'll take a motion to.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Pike, second by Solis. Would you call for the vote, please?
Solis?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
All right. Now we have N3, pulled by the public and Mr. Pike. And
No.
we have a presentation. Well,
No,
I
it's
see.
pulled by Mr. Tarantino as well.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Tarantino.
I have one speaker, Nick
Right.
Marinovich.
Sorry. Sorry. Did I sound bad?
Okay.
Excuse me, you're fine?
Masai, yes, was
Pass.
withdrawn. Okay,
All
no
right.
speakers.
No speakers. Mr. Tarantino?
My my question was in regards to Moss Adams as well, and that was redacted, so I don't have any issues.
All right. All right. So if we have no comments and no, do we have any questions from our board? No? All right. I'll entertain a motion. A motion to approve N3 has been made by Mr. Solis.
I'll
Do I-
second.
A second by Pike. Call for the vote, please.
Solis?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
All right. And now we have Q3.
Oh, one,
No,
ma'am.
no, 01. Sorry.
Pulled by yourself.
01 is about this wonderful program at and partnership that I just wanted to commend staff, Mr. Spahn, and our great program out at Southwest High that is really flourishing, and they have done a tremendous work out there. So if you haven't been out there to witness it, you ought to go check it out. And I'm sure our previous student board member, Xavier, would be glad to give you a tour and see what wonderful things. But they are doing this partnership, and the cafeteria will be services will be purchasing the eggs raised organically by students in their project, and it's a wonderful thing. So I would just want to say thank you very much and recognize that. So that's all. Anyone else? Mr. Irizarry?
I mean, because this is small, growing, like operational on school campus, I imagine it's not going to be much. But how many eggs are provided, or like I guess an estimate, a week by their engineering program?
Mr. Span?
Hello, board.
Hi.
Raise this up a little bit. I always appreciate the opportunity to stay a little later and get to talk to you.
Sorry.
Thank you. So we are currently using between 30 and 50 dozen eggs per week from the Southwest High farm. That's actually going to increase because our baby chickens are now starting to lay as well. So we're going to start rolling those eggs into our breakfast program.
Nice. It's really cool. You ought to see it. Beautiful chickens.
Thank you.
They are
Thank you
beautiful
so
chickens.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pretty cool. Hopefully, should try one.
Yeah, you should go to the cafeteria and you can just have one of our protein boxes and you'll have the eggs. They're currently in a protein box that we serve at least 3 times a month. So they're on the menu.
Definitely try one.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And just to make a note, they've been certified by the county Board of Health.
Correct.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Oh no. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Pike, second by Solis. Call for the vote, please.
Solis?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
All right, so now we have Q1.
Yes, I have 1 speaker. Kathleen Cheers.
All right. Since it was pulled, we do need to take a vote on it. So if there's no questions from the board, I'll entertain a motion to approve Q1.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Pike, second by Solis. Call for the vote, please.
Solis?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Q3.
I have 1 speaker. Kathleen Cheers.
Thank you. Q3 is nobody's pulled it after all, so I will entertain a motion to approve Q3.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Pike, second by Solis. Call for the vote, please.
Solis?
Yes.
Pike?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
And now we will have board comment. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We did table 1 item till the end of the meeting, and so we will have the CBOC report now from Mr. Marinovich. If you didn't, do we need a break first? No. Okay, so come forward. Well, normally we take one at 8 o'clock. I'm just double checking.
We have the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
They have a copy of the PowerPoint.
We have it.
I thought it was going to be on the screen.
No.
Do you need a copy?
I need a copy, yeah.
Here, we'll share. I thought this,
Okay.
I didn't even know about it.
All these cute pictures I thought of. I'm sorry. All right. Well, anyway, I thought you could get it up. Anyway, I never want to be the last one on the agenda. Everybody's waiting. When will he get done so I can leave? So, obviously, this is a very important
part of your tenure here on the board. I mean, we got some major things that are happening in the next 6 months that are going to be your legacy, not that you're into personal legacies for 20 years. So this is extremely important. But I did want to go over a couple of things we went over at the Bond Oversight Committee. And the first one, and it was a meaty meeting. And I understand that I waited to this part because Trustee Segura couldn't hear this presentation because it had so many elements of the project labor agreement in that. But our committee dealt with the PLA. We updated our bond transparency scorecard. We talked about the survey that was done on the voter appetite for a new bond measure and about bond issue compliance. One of the things on bond oversight, just kind of, I wish I had the slide in front of me, or we had to refer to. But you know, why am I even here? And why is the survey? How does that relate to the survey? Survey says you're going to need another CBOC whether you like it or not. You're not going to probably get a 2/3 vote. Or you wouldn't want to risk that, because with a 2/3 vote you can do away with the Nick Marinoviches of the world and the performance audit and really spend the money pretty much on any capital project. So you're going to need oversight. You're going to need accountability that goes along with it. That was the quid pro quo when this law passed in 2000, or a constitutional amendment passed in 2000, that allowed you to have a lower voter threshold. And our role is simply to report to the public. We don't tell you what projects to build. We just tell you how, if you build it efficiently and whether it was cost effective and we think you did the right thing. So that's kind of why we're here, kind of a reminder why you have the Bond Oversight Committee. In terms of the PLA, and I had this picture, I can't see it here, President Obama shaking union members' hands. And I looked at that picture, you know, I was trying to make this interesting. There it is, see? And I go, oh, those were the good old days. Oh, God, you know, it's just like, anyway. What our bond committee said, just as a board, I thought you should know, we don't have any pitchforks out on the PLA. However, we're going to hold you compliant to its provisions. That was the outcome of a bond oversight subcommittee that our committee approved in unison. We also want to compare what other districts are doing in this county with their PLA, see if there's any substantive differences that maybe would make it even a better PLA if you inserted those provisions. There are two issues on the PLA that I wanted to give you sort of a red flag on, and it's a work in progress like a lot of these are. One is the committee certainly is going to have questions about compliance. And Dr. Aguirre has limited resources, so we had a discussion at the committee. We don't want to overburden him with a bunch of requests that it would require a lot of staff time. So the consensus, and we'll work through this in the future, is if it's data that you need to collect to make sure you're in compliance with the PLA, that information in the issue of transparency will be provided to the CBOC. Easy enough. Here's the more difficult one, and I don't have an answer here, is there's some, what General Counsel mentioned, that maybe there are provisions of the PLA that have nothing to do with the Proposition O project, and therefore it's really not within our purview. An example would be perhaps the helmets to hard hat requirement as a part of the PLA. That does not involve a bond expenditure, but it's part of the overall umbrella of the PLA in compliance. Now, I would make the argument, then I'll move on to the next slide, is that the PLA is kind of like there's pluses and there's minuses. You have less work stop, you have less change orders, better quality construction, local workers. Those are sort of part of it. And also what you get with it is you get helmets to hard hats and you get apprenticeship training. Maybe you get higher costs. So there's trade-offs, and we ought to look at the entire PLA. I don't have the bond transparency scorecard is too small to see on the screen, or if it was up there probably, but there were improvements. There was a subcommittee, moving on to the bond scorecard, there was a subcommittee of the CBOC that said, it's how we doing now, subcommittee. and there were overall improvements in a number of areas with that. There was a tentative we would support a new bond measure, but we said, you know, it's still too early. Let's give it a couple months. Let's see what the new survey comes out to be, and we'll look at it again sometime in the June area when you're June, July, when the rubber is ready to meet the road on the going before the Register of Voters. There was definitely a need for feeling that there needs to be, and this is a continuing theme throughout the past several years, of the resource requirements Dr. Aguirre's need to pull this off in the future. Project staff, consultants, everything. You know, you're at a very low level now, and when this you get approval and you go to Mach 3, it's going to be a lot of expectations, and you better, you know, what goes along with that as a parenthetical comment, once you do decide in August, if you do decide that, to do forward with a vote, be prepared for the consultants to start lining up and being your best friend. I caution you, with the greatest degree of caution, be very, very careful about what you say, what you promise, everything. Because these people, you know, let me just say, that's word to the wise there, as you can see from what happened 10 years ago. We were improved, very happy with the master plan process. And the other issue that's been mentioned frequently, and you'll get to this when in the future, presumably with the ballot language, is making sure there's district-wide standards, the overall arching themes of what you want to do in this ballot measure. On to the bond measure feasibility survey, which we discussed at the Bond Oversight Committee again. And I sat here also at the conference, at the special workshop, and I'm about coming out of my seat. Look at the consultants saying what we've been saying as a committee. They want accountability, they want strong oversight, prepare what we got, do the basic infrastructure things first. I mean, that's what the voters want. It's not. They also don't want a blank check either, because as you saw, the sensitivity of approval decreased as the amount to be borrowed. As an observation, that kind of says there's still that baggage from the past as you move forward that's going to have to be considered. And secondly, it's not a, you know, the voter approval level is not a slam dunk. Even though you certainly would get it, not certainly, most likely to get it today, there's going to need to be work done to make sure that the narrative continues there if your desire is to move forward. But you know, the bond, you can use, unless I'm making an argument, use a strong bond oversight committee. It's accountability requirements. What we have been saying as a committee, and you've been doing as a board in your decision on the HVAC, which is a perfect example of what the voters want in the survey. Say we are going to do that. That's what really is in the future is important. The other thing we dealt with, and though I'd been the protagonist, I guess, would be being a stickler for the details of the ballot language, that we need to, there's a list of specific projects for each school, and that's how you spend it, and then there's, well, would give us more flexibility maybe by putting also a general paragraph of how we can spend the money. Right now, the bond committee plate is full. They clearly did not have an interest at the meeting of pursuing that ballot compliance issue yet, even though it was raised in the performance audit. Well, let me just say as a digression, and Janaea knows what I'm talking about because she was over at Grossmont. This is what the kind of thing I think we have to avoid. There was I get so angry about this, but anyway, there was a project listed for Helix High School, and I just use that high school as an example. And in that ballot language, it said a multi-purpose room. You go to a multi-purpose room, you'll see one at Otay Ranch High School. Well, as you see in your slide, they built the multi-purpose room evolved into a performing arts center. Huge, double the cost. That's what Prop 39, that passed how many years, 17, 18 years ago, wanted to avoid. The voters, you wouldn't be a bait and switch, we want to do this, but we really want to do this because we want something bigger. That's what the community wants. that's what I think it's important that the board, you tell the voters exactly how you're going to spend the money, and don't all of a sudden spend it differently. You as a board, you're not going to be here 10 years from now, I don't think. You've got term, you don't want future boards changing the rules of the road. That's why you want strong accountability. I guess I'm preaching a bit, but in closing, there has been progress. Sat here, been to how many meetings I don't even want to think about, and it all starts with Dr. Aguirre right now. He's the center of what's right, along with Dr. Janney. Obviously, that goes without saying, but he has been, I don't know what, I would have quit. I couldn't have taken much more of Calhoun, trust me. Or Brand, or anything. Jesus. Anyway, and it was a reminder of how much better we have, because in the PowerPoint I looked at some old photos, and oh my God, of protested meetings and standing at the door in the back and all that stuff, and Ms. Vacedo, all poker face, just sat there. You couldn't say. Amazing how you're able to do that. Anyway, I'm giving you a hard time. She does a fantastic job. Anyway, the master plan process has improved. The selection of CBOC members is critically important, that you have an independent process for that. You have an expanded performance audit, which we got. Warranty compliance. There's a lot of good things. Performance specs have improved. The rubric that you saw tonight. The one issue that we still, I think, and it's kind of a general comment, is I remember Pearl Quinones was sitting there in your seat, and I said what this district needs is trust, transparency, and thoroughness, the 3 T's. And I think we got the trust and we got the transparency. We still need a little bit more, or in some cases a lot more, with the one project. We had a thoroughness, the culture of thoroughness. And that hasn't been, as you know, hasn't been the culture of this district. And it's getting there. It's hard to move, I don't know how many employees. You can't move every employee at once. And here was an opportunity. I could show my son the tape, and this is my grandson. He's already started male pattern baldness, right? But the point is, it's going to be 18 years he's going to graduate from high school. A lot of the projects, things are going to start today. Children, he's in Portland with all those liberals up there. But anyway, there's kids now that are not even born yet. They're going to deal with what you decide. So I just, it's an important part of your tenure up here as a board. And I want to work as chair with you, with the committee. We're still going to be pains from time to time, but I think while we're not there yet on the support, we're getting there. But it's a tough group, because they joined this bond oversight committee because of the sins of the past, and it's governments involved here. And sometimes we've been proven as citizens, you can't even trust the president. Government. And I think as long as if you build the trust of the voters, then you'll do your job. But thank you for listening, and go home.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Marinovich. And now we'll have reports from the boards. We've already heard Mr. Irizarry's report earlier, so now we'll start with Mr. Solis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Saul. I just wanted to thank Mrs. Cheers for the wonderful comments earlier. Thank you very much. And also I wanted to, one thing that Dr. Janney didn't mention, I was there at the Women of the Year celebration, and she was also honored, and she didn't want to say it, but I want to make sure I said it because it's well deserved. So great job. So and Dr. Aguirre, if you could just text me and let me know for Monday. I do want to go, so I'll have some time. Okay. So thank you. Have a great Easter break, and we'll see you.
Thank you. Mr. Pike?
Yes, I just wanted to say a couple of quick things. First off, at my particular schools in my district, we've had some issues. So I'd like to thank the staff that are starting to working on Bonita Vista already. They've had us pass those M's or whatever you want to call them, so that they could start work on Bonita, which is very necessary. Thank you very much for that. And also thank you for finally getting Hilltop on the road to recovery, because we all know we've been to the meetings and they are not happy campers over there. So hopefully this will be a good sign, and good attitude will hopefully come from that. And the third thing is I'm excited to see the free range eggs. I'm gonna go down there and taste them myself. I've never had one, but that's really a great idea, and I'm glad to see our district doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tarantino?
Thank you, President Hall. I'd like to begin by thanking Dr. Fulcher and his team and everyone else who participated in the activities of March 14th. I think we allowed the students to have the flexibility of having some input into what was going to happen at the different sites, and I think that that was very important, and I think that's why it was such a success, because the students themselves, like the students at Parkland, organized many of the events that happened on our campuses. Also, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Fulcher, for your continuing equity series, especially Jerry Teo, who came and spoke to a group of people. And I've listened to him 3 times, and every time I listen to him, I learn something different about not only him, but about what he believes in and what he is doing for our district. And I think you've established a core of people that from that core will go out and spread his message and fill a need that our district hasn't addressed in a while. So thank you for that. To kind of piggyback on what Mrs. Cheers said, I'd like to congratulate the administration, faculty, and staff of Alta Vista Academy for their first ever multicultural fair. And you know, I do know that Palomar is a very caring place for students and staff, but I have to tell you, Alta Vista is Palomar on steroids, because that group of individuals, they go the extra mile for those students. And I'd like to call out a couple of the students that spent the time to educate me in their project. And each advisory period had a project, and they had posters, and they had a narrative, and would go around the room, and they had foods and stuff like that. And I'd really like to thank Jasmine and Dejanay for their presentation on Ellis Island and the importance of immigrants in terms of our nation's history. And yes, Maurice, who had a demonstration of hip-hop and how hip-hop has influenced our culture. And yes, there was dancing. I thought it was the electric slide, but Ms. Facito told me it's the Cupid shuffle. Thank you. And for those of you who don't know me, I am directionally challenged. I don't see maps. I don't know my right from my left. And so until Ms. Facito told me that the song was telling you which way to move, I couldn't understand why I was out of sync. And one kid came up and said, you know, I knew white people couldn't jump, but you proved that they can't dance either. So, but it was really kind of cute. And again, the pride that they had in terms of the the projects that they made. It was just an all-around good feeling hour, and again, kudos to that staff. And last of all, I'd like to kind of piggyback on what Dr. Janney said. I'd like to first of all thank Southwestern College for continuing to invite us to all of their activities. I think that shows that we've come a long way in terms that we are one. We share students eventually, and so it was a great opportunity to celebrate kids and also the legacy of Cesar Chavez. And I think there were 8 students who received $1,000 scholarships each at that breakfast. So it was a great opportunity again to kind of network with our colleagues from Southwestern College, as well as to celebrate the accomplishments of the students. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo my fellow board members' comments and say thank you to Dr. Fulcher for his leadership, especially in crafting of that resolution, and that I wanted to thank Dr. Carberry for her leadership with the Wallace collaboration and developing leaders within our own district, and how that work will really benefit students throughout our district and their families. And Dr. Janney, you're amazing, and I'm glad that they recognized you at the Women's Awards. Those women, the stories of what they're doing in their communities and their activism and their leadership is so amazing, and how many of our students were recognized there. And they are stepping out in tremendous ways to lead in their communities, in their school communities, to make differences in the lives of those around them. And they're to be commended, as all of you are, because you're putting students first every day. I went to Sacramento with Dr. Janney and Dr. Geary to advocate for more funding for our project, but it really was because our project affects so many students in the area of our schools. It is the only pool in our school district, and for many students it will be the only time that they'll have access to be able to learn how to swim and to compete in swimming activities, and those things will never can't be duplicated, those opportunities. So I think it is a benefit for our community, and I want to extend my thanks to Senator Hueso and his staff, Anna Molina, and the others who helped facilitate that meeting, and with the director of the state parks, and really was very informative and very fruitful, I believe, and we're doing good work. But also the city manager of Imperial Beach, Andy Hall, and the council member, Robert Patton, accompanied us in that meeting. So I wanted to extend my thanks to them as well. And I went to some other events, but I won't bore you with all those details. I'll just say that I'm proud of this board and the work that they've done, and it really is meaningful when we go out and we meet people like Dylan Jaff, who we met that day in Sacramento. He's a young man, he's an intern, he's a graduate of Eastlake High, and he is an intern for Ben Hueso, working in the Sacramento office currently. He goes to school down here, but he's an intern in the program in the state office this semester. Really excellent. It was really special to meet him that day, have him greet us, and really to come out and say, well, I'm a Sweetwater District graduate. I'm from Eastlake High. Real testimony to everyone here. So thank you, and with that, good night.